All right, welcome into Ethan Skolnick's Starting Nine. I'm Ethan Skolnick. It'd be a little bit weird if I was not the host of this show. Make sure you like and subscribe here to the channel, 5 Reasons YouTube channel. We've got more content, I would say, than pretty much anybody else in South Florida. We've got more contributors. We got a ton of Dolphins stuff that's been going up the past couple of days. And, of course, the Heat stuff, 5 on the Floor, the episode from last night, will be up shortly. The four of us, me, Brady, Alex, and Greg, went through the midseason grades. Some of them are not so good, so make sure you check that out. We did almost a full hour last night, so we went about twice as long as we usually do. That'll be on the channel later today. Also, Dolphins on 5, Alfredo and Dave Eversole did their post press conference episode after Mike McDaniel spoke yesterday. They'll be doing those throughout the week. 3 yards per carry episodes will be posted up here throughout the week. We know that's the most popular Dolphins podcast that exists by the numbers and everything else, and we're going to start putting those on the channel as soon as they come out. They're doing 3 episodes this week. Also, Pulse of Fins Nation is tonight with Lewis and Ron. Extra Yard with Alex, Dono, and Troy Stratford. So just a ton of Dolphins content, and of course, all of our usual Heat content pregame off the OKC game tonight, which 3 of us are going to be covering down there. That'll be up here, as well as the post-game show, which Greg Sylvander is hosting. So we've got everybody on board this week. We are sponsored here, as always, by our friends over at Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. We hope you played it for the national championship game last night because there was no other reason to watch. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Get your initial deposit matched up to $100. There are no rollovers. This is free money, okay? You want to put down 20, put down 20. That's fine, okay? But you play the different sports together if you want. The NFL, the NBA, they give you free squares all the time. Pretty much, everybody who follows us is doing this now, and they're using our code 5. Helps us because we get credit for it, but also helps you because you get your money matched up to $100. Also, we're going to be giving away free promo funds throughout the month. So go to prizepicks.com or Google Play Store, the Apple App Store. You can download it from there. All right, this is a combination episode today. We will take your comments and your questions. It's a morning. We don't typically get as many, but what I want to do with these episodes throughout the week is kind of set the table for what we've got going on, but also what's going on with the major teams in town. We know that the Dolphins and the Heat is what everybody's focused on right now, and I actually see some parallels here. They're both at kind of inflection points, in my view. The Dolphins, of course, are going to the playoffs for the first time since 2016. They have not won a playoff game since December 30th, 2000. I'm going to repeat that. December 30th, 2000. So they have not won a playoff game since before 9/11. Okay. Lamar Smith rushed in that game for 209 yards. Jay Fiedler was the quarterback. They have not won a playoff game since then. But I didn't have time before this episode to go back and see how many playoff series the Heat have won, because to me, that's the apples to apples comparison. Since the Dolphins, maybe I'll do it right now. Since the Dolphins have won a playoff game, let's take a quick look here. How many playoff series have they won? I'm going to go with over 20. Okay, since 2000. In fact, I'm looking at it right now. I think it's going to be well over 20, actually. Okay, so this is the difference between the two franchises, and I'll get to that number here a little bit later, is that we expect success from the Heat. We do not from the Dolphins. Heat fans are not fatalistic. Dolphin fans are fatalistic. Dolphin fans think the worst is going to happen in all situations, never more so than this past Sunday against an awful, awful Jets offense, quarterbacked by Joe Flacco. Looking back at it, we actually did expect the Dolphins to lose that game. I think most of us did. I picked against them. 3 of the 4 on the pregame show, we picked against them. Now, some of it was Skylar Thompson, a quarterback, but some of it was just history. Some of it was just, these are games that the Dolphins typically lose. So they didn't lose it. They got to the next step, and they ended up pretty much in the same place that we thought they'd be before the season. Forget the ups and downs, the win streaks, the losing streaks, 2 out, 2 in. Most people before the year, and I had them this way as well, said, and I said 11-6, but again, the record doesn't matter. They got to the playoffs in this spot, okay? I said they would finish second in their division and get a wild card. Okay, they finished second in their division and they got a wild card. That's ultimately what happened. They won 2 fewer games than I thought they would win, largely because Tua was out, because I think they do win 11 games if he's healthy more throughout the season. And they end up going to Buffalo in the first round because we thought Buffalo would win the division. They're right where we thought they'd be. It's just that everybody feels differently about them now because of the journey, right? Because we don't know if Tua is going to play. We don't know if Armstead's going to play. We don't know now if Raheem Mostert's going to play. Xavier Howard's playing, but I'm not really sure that's what this is. Okay. Byron Jones never came back. Brandon Jones was lost for the season. So they're a different team than we thought they would be, with the exception of their receivers being healthy, or at least their two primary receivers. Mike Gesicki's been a non-factor. And Jason Sanders, as we know, has been up and down, although thank God for them, he was up in this past game. So they are where we thought they would be, but nobody has any confidence in them now. And what's funny is the Bills actually are not as good as I think we thought they would be. Now, some of this, was injuries to their own secondary, but they're not dominant like we thought they might be. But now they have this extra push, which is that a player who nearly died on the field may actually be on the sidelines this Sunday, and that's going to be an emotional boost like we've never seen. And so the Dolphins are going up into that. The weather is not supposed to be awful. It's supposed to be in the high 20s. And, we're supposed to get through it. Let's get through Aaron's comment. Do Dolphin fans deserve to act like Heat fans when it comes to just the playoffs, or act more humble due to playoff appearances and wins? I think Dolphin fans act like they should act, which is that I think they are more humble generally. I think they're harder on their organization than the Heat fans are. And like I said, they're more fatalistic. What amuses me is there is a segment of the population down here that are Heat fans and not Dolphin fans, and Dolphin fans and not Heat fans. That does exist. There's plenty, or at least they have a strong preference for one over the other. Dolphin fans are kind of snarky at Heat fans, I've noticed. The ones that are primarily Dolphin fans. It's like they kind of try to discredit the Heat's success. There's no way to discredit the Heat's success over the past 25 years. They've been arguably with the Spurs, who are in a down period now, but they've been with the Spurs, and then for periods of time, the Lakers, the Warriors. They've been one of the 5 best franchises in their sport over the past 25 years. They've been the most consistent of all of those, actually, again, with the exception of the Spurs, who dipped recently. And so there's no way to take anything away from the Heat's success, but Dolphin fans do. I think there's an inferiority complex for Dolphin fans, which is earned because of the way that their team is operated, and they've gone through like 15 regimes while the Heat have had one. And so, I get it. I understand it. I don't like being on Dolphins Twitter. It is toxic beyond belief. Heat Twitter is toxic in a different way. Heat Twitter is taking on particular players. It's like dividing players against each other more so than anything else, like Bam versus Hero. And yet those two guys are extraordinarily close and are trying to move the franchise forward together. It's just weird. So that's where I'm at with it. But getting back to this, when you take a look at the Dolphins situation, they have a chance to make this season matter. Okay. And before I get to what the Heat can do to make their season matter, the threshold for me is a competitive game this Sunday. It's not a win. All right. Nobody was anticipating before this year that they would go up to Buffalo and win if they ended up in this spot, which is the spot that I predicted they would be in and many others predicted they would be in. Nobody really thought they would go up and win that game in Buffalo. They'd get to that game in Buffalo, but not win that game in Buffalo. To me, if they're able to repeat the last game in Buffalo, where they really could have pulled that thing out, okay, I think you declare this a successful season. I know it'll finish at 9-9. I know that everybody will harp on the losing streaks. We'll start to get into whether 2 is the long-term answer and all that. But I think that is successful. But if we will get into that, bro, for sure. But still, I think that's what we used on 5 on the Floor. So to me, the threshold for the Dolphins is competitive this weekend. Don't pull a TCU. Okay. Like now, you see what's happening with TCU? It's like now everybody's going back and saying, well, that win against Michigan didn't mean anything. No, it did mean something. Okay. They beat Michigan, which beat Ohio State, which lost by a missed extra point or a missed whatever field goal, a missed kick against Georgia. TCU belonged there in the playoff, but they're not at Georgia's level, and they had an absolutely awful night. Now, if the Dolphins go in and get blown out, then it's going to color everything that happens in the season. You're going to say, well, you didn't belong on the same field with Buffalo. But they did belong on the same field with Buffalo this year. They beat them at home, and they went up there and could have taken the second game. And so to me, to validate what they've done throughout this season and to validate their course, they have to show that they're at least close with this particular team under the circumstances. This comes in from Jay Mill. It's not just this season. It's the fact that we have zero reason to believe our starting quarterback will be available. We need him in any season. And look, that is understandable. Like my view on Tua is this. Everyone knows, who's followed the network knows, I've been a supporter of Tua. I believe that he is a starting level, high level starting quarterback. I'm not going to say he's a top 5 guy, but to me, in the right system with the right talent around him, which he had this year, he can produce really, really good results. Okay. And I think we saw that. That's been proven. But availability is a thing. I get that. Okay. And my thing on the whole availability question with Tua was that people were not giving him enough credit for coming back from a catastrophic hip injury that anybody would have suffered if they were hit the way that he was hit. Okay. So this wasn't about being brittle or anything like that. He came back for it, which to me showed he could be available. He did show tremendous fortitude. He came back earlier than anybody thought. Okay. He tried to play through it. That was supposed to be a 1 to 2 year rehab. And so I thought he got banged unnecessarily for his durability when he actually proved toughness coming back. Concussions are a different matter, though. Okay. Oh, I have a friend, again, I'm not going to play doctor here, but I have a friend of mine who is a doctor. Okay. And he's not a neurosurgeon or anything like that. He's in a different field of medicine, but he's studied enough to, and he basically said to me, he says, Tua is not going to last. He says his body, his body is not built for this game long term. I know plenty of people who feel that way, and I understand that. And the Dolphins have to prepare accordingly when that affects the extension that they give him. If they give him an extension, or if they just let the contract play out, it affects who they bring in as a backup quarterback. They thought they did the right thing with a backup quarterback. They didn't know that the guy they brought in as backup quarterback had basically given up on his love for football, because that's what it looks like with Teddy Bridgewater. I can tell you, I was talking, I'm not going to say who, okay, but you guys can guess. I was talking to some Heat players after the game the other day, just about, one of them was wearing a Dolphins shirt, so you can guess who that was. This is not the person who said this, okay? I was talking with him and 2 other guys before the interviews at the lockers started, and they were just talking about the Dolphin game with me. And one guy walks by, and you can probably guess who this is, and said, "Oh, I don't really follow football, but that Bridgewater guy sucks." Okay. So I don't think Teddy Bridgewater sucked before this. I just think Teddy Bridgewater has not shown a hell of a lot of passion for this particular situation this season. And maybe the guy's love of football is just gone. I don't know. It happens to some guys. So the Dolphins did think they prepared for this. They tried to upgrade from Jacoby Brissett. Remember, that didn't go very well. And then Brissett actually played better this year than he did for the Dolphins last year. So I think you have to take precautions when Tua is your quarterback. Okay. But I don't know necessarily that I'm ready to give up Tua as the quarterback when I've seen results from Tua that we have not seen from any Dolphins quarterback other than like 10 games of Chad Pennington and a few games of Ryan Tannehill in 2016. We've not seen that kind of performance from a Dolphins quarterback since Dan. I mean, nothing close. Jay Fiedler had like a few good weeks where it looked like, he at least could competently run that offense and win alongside that defense. But they've not had that. I mean, they've had the Joey Harringtons and all the rest of the world. So for Jay Mill, I give Tua all the credit in the world, but I was 10 when Marino retired. I'm just ready to have our undisputed guy. I agree with you. But again, like they are and you're 10, so you're 16 years younger than me. I totally get that. I'm just saying finding that guy has been absolutely impossible. So they have someone who looks like he can be that guy. I'm not ready to give up on it. I am ready to protect myself. And I feel like that's what they need to do. Now, whether he plays or he doesn't play, we know the narrative is going to be about his head and about whether he should have played. There is no middle ground, it seems, on him. Okay, which again, I don't understand. I don't know why he's so polarizing. He is the nicest kid in the world. I don't get it. I don't know why he brings this type of anger towards him in any way. It seems like it's colored by something else. I don't know what it is. I'm not claiming it's race. I have no idea. I don't get it. I don't know why Tua has become a lightning rod when other quarterbacks around the NFL who are much more controversial than him are not. But what I'm saying is this: whatever happens up there, it's going to be colored by the narrative of people who come into this situation with a certain perspective. So, for instance, okay, if he goes up there and let's say he plays, okay, and let's say he performs well, even if they lose, then we know what's going to happen then from the group that wants him to be the quarterback. They're going to say, look at the toughness, look at everything that he's overcome this season. He gave them a chance to win. Okay, it's not going to satisfy those who think he's not available enough or think his arm is not strong enough, etc. If he goes up there and he performs poorly, okay, which is very possible. Remember, he was rusty when he came back the last time at first. It took him a game, okay? If he goes up there and he plays poorly, he's going to get creamed always. I mean, he's just going to get slammed because it's going to be, you couldn't count on him to be effective at this stage of the season because he's never going to be healthy enough. And also, he can't win in cold weather. And also, it's just going to be he's not the guy. I kind of feel like he's in a little bit of a no-win situation unless he goes up there and throws for 3 touchdowns and 280 yards without a pick. But I give him credit for wanting to come back. And the only thing I can say about Tua that must be understood before we move on to the Heat here, his teammates love the guy, okay? And I know from covering, and I don't do it as much as I used to, okay, but from being in football locker rooms for a long time, I covered all the Zach, Jason years, etc., okay? If a team doesn't love a quarterback, you know it. That's not something that can be faked. I mean, look at what happened with the Jets this year with Zach Wilson. I mean, the Jets teammates basically voted him off the island, okay? I mean, a number 2 overall pick who couldn't even play in the last game of the season because his confidence is so broken. Why? Because his teammates did not believe in him. These guys believe in this guy, okay? I go back to a story about Jay Fiedler and somebody that Dolphin players did not believe in. When A.J. Feely was picked up, remember that? He went 4-1 in, some of you too young to remember this, but he went 4-1 under Andy Reid. Anybody could go 4-1 under Andy Reid, okay, in Philadelphia. And so Rick Spielman traded for him, traded a second-round pick, and brought him in to compete with Jay Fiedler, but ostensibly to take the job from Jay Fiedler, okay? And during that season, when Wannstedt, who wanted to start Fiedler, kept going back to Feely because they had invested in Feely, Zach and Jason and other veteran defensive players went to Dave Wannstedt and said, start Jay. They believed in Jay, okay, not AJ. And ultimately, they were right, okay, because AJ didn't turn out to be anything. And my point is that players know. And if these players believe in Tua, which is obvious by the way that they interact with him, they don't just like him personally, they believe in him as a quarterback, then I'm going to trust them. But I also agree with those who say he's not durable enough at this stage, not because of the other stuff, not because of a broken finger that happens, okay, because the concussions, which is serious and potentially life-threatening and all the rest of that. I understand the need to back that position up properly. And maybe that means bringing in 2 guys behind him that can play. But anyway, let's pivot to the Heat, okay? Because I don't think we should look past them this week. They have to make this season matter. That's where I'm at with it. And that's why I gave Riley a D+ yesterday, even though I think he can change it to a B with the trade, all right? And I'm sure I'm going to hear about that. But that's the thing about Pat Riley teams. Seasons matter. He's made basketball matter in this town. This season does not matter so far. This season has not been worth watching. I'm sorry. There have been moments, the hero shot, Oladipo's recovery, Bam's development, Jimmy when he plays, okay? But the season itself is it's just hard to get behind, like a 1 step up, 1 step back. It's just difficult. And you don't even know who's going to play from night to night. And you don't know if the players are connected. You don't know if the players care. Now, I've seen good signs the past couple of weeks. Eric Spoelstra's seen some good signs. I thought that the Nets loss, even though Durant went out, of course, Bam went out too. He'll be back soon. He may not play tonight. But I thought the Nets loss was more encouraging than a lot of their wins, honestly, just because of the way that they played and the energy they played with, the connectivity they played with. But this season is trending towards being something very forgettable. And that is not what Pat Riley organizations do. And so to me, the Heat really have like 3 weeks to figure this thing out. Like the second half of the season starts today against OKC. I know OKC has played over its head this year. You cannot lose this game. I'm sorry. You can't. They've lost too many games at home already to teams that are really competing for draft picks. It's ridiculous. Okay. The Pistons, the Spurs, etc. They have to win tonight. They got to get at least 1 of 2 against the Bucks. The Bucks are not playing that well right now. All right. They will at some point during the season, but right now they're in a down patch. They got to handle at least 1 of those 2 games against the Bucks. They have to show that they're building towards something, because my concern is if they don't show that here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, an ownership group that does not seem inclined to pay the luxury tax as it is or take on any more money is going to become even more disinclined to make any moves to try to improve the roster. And then the season definitely will not matter. And then we're going to look back on it and say, well, then they should have pivoted the other way earlier if that was going to happen. So that's where I'm at with it right now. Both organizations, both teams have chances to make these seasons matter. For the Dolphins, competitiveness this Sunday. Not necessarily a win. Stay within the 10.5, please, or the 11, because I think I might play it. We'll see. If I do that, I'll do that at Better Edge using the code 5RSN. But for the Heat, it's getting on a little bit of run. All right, some closing comments here in a second. I do want to mention another sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. It's ODM Performance Solutions, ODMPSI.com, ODMPSI.com. Check them out. This is for all of your consulting needs. Go to ODMPSI.com. We mentioned the performance solution of the game all the time. They can get everything from C-suite level leadership all the way down the line. They also have the call centers that they can work on for your business. So go to ODMPSI.com. We always appreciate their sponsorship, as well as Better Edge. Use that code 5RSN. So here's where I have to make a choice, okay, on which of these two things I think are actually going to happen. And I'll get to some of these other comments. This one comes in. From our friend Royal. Your grades on the pod surprised me. I think they surprised others on the podcast. Good to see you, Royal. Others on the podcast as well. What also surprised me was that Greg's grades were worse than mine. So I was not anticipating that. Here's what I think is more likely to happen. Okay. I still believe more in the Heat doing what they need to do to make something matter than I do in the Dolphins. So although I talk about I'm going to take the 10.5 this weekend, probably when push comes to shove, I won't. I think we are conditioned at this stage for the Dolphins to disappoint. And I think we're conditioned at this stage for the Heat to figure it out. I believe, based on conversations with those inside the organization, that they recognize how stale this thing is. They recognize that some mistakes were made this offseason, although they will argue with you about certain things that you may think are a mistake. But I do think they're going to do something to try to get this thing right. And my confidence is mostly in Eric Spoelstra's ability, typically after the All-Star break, to go on a run. His record is considerably better in March and April than it is in the months prior. And so I would anticipate that they will get it going. The Dolphins' confidence level is a little bit lower here. All right, I'll just go through a couple comments here before we close. Thanks to our sponsors, ODMPSI.com, and also Prize Picks. Use that code 5. This goes in for Vic. The Heat aren't going anywhere. That's why people want to tank. Jay Mill, the Heat have earned that confidence. The Dolphins have earned that lack of confidence. I completely agree with that. And then what is this? Vic, Bam was ducking Nick Claxton. I don't know if I agree with that. And then Nick says, Jay Fiedler stayed throwing late game picks like Romo. I am always going to defend my guy Jay because I once went to Thanksgiving dinner at his grandparents' house. They lived in Boca, like every other Jewish person in South Florida. So there will be no Jay Fiedler slander on the show. All right, that's it, man. He's got to go. He's got to go to work. He's got to make some actual money because that doesn't happen with me. Use that code 5 at Prize Picks. Plenty of content all day long. We'll be doing this 2 or 3 times a week. And again, thanks to our sponsor, ODMPSI.com. Have a good day, everybody.